Good morning. Today we're going to look at lesson 10.5. It's metric measure. How can you compare and convert metric units? Metric units are actually easier than customary units because it's all on that base 10 system that we've been using in our place value. So when you move from one metric measure to the next, you're just moving by tens instead of, well, there's 12 inches in a foot. There's 36 inches in a yard. Instead of having to try and remember all that, you're just moving by tens. So one thing you will have to remember is that the center of this, meter, liter, and gram, those are your three basic measurements. Remember, meter is length. Liter is capacity, and grams is weight. So, as you move across this scale, deci is like a tenth. So you actually have a little decimal point here. Centa is like hundredths, and milla is like thousandths. Deca is 10. This is the meter, liter, gram, the yellow spot, that's the ones place. Basically. Deca is the tens, hecta is the hundredth, and kilo is the thousandths. Okay? So it says the metric system is based upon place value. Each unit is related to the next largest or next smallest unit by a power of 10. So if I were going to go from meters to decameters, I would multiply it by 10. If I were going from decameters to hectometers, I would multiply by 10. What if I'm going from meters to decimeters? What am I going to do? Divide by 10. Okay, or multiply it by 1/10. So it's really easier to work with. The key is remembering all these little prefixes. Using a map, Alex estimates the distance between his house and his grandparents' house to be about 15,000 meters. About how many kilometers away from his grandparents' house does Alex live? The metric system is based on place value. Each unit is related to the next largest or next smallest unit by a power of 10. One way, convert 15,000 meters to kilometers. First, find the relationship between the units. Meters are how many powers of 10 smaller than kilometers? How many? 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 powers of 10 smaller than kilometers. There are how many meters in a kilometer? What did I tell you? This is tens, hundreds, thousands. So there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Determine the operation to be used. I am converting from a meter. Is meter smaller or larger than kilometers? Smaller. Smaller. So I am converting from a smaller unit to a what? Larger unit. So I will what? Divide. Very good. So we're using some of those same skills that we learned with our customary measure. Always, if we're going from smaller to larger, we're going to divide. If we're going from larger to smaller, we're going to multiply. Okay, so you already determined that there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. Since you are converting from a smaller unit to a larger unit, you divide. Remember that our problem, what we need to find out here is, he lives 15,000 meters. They want us to put that into kilometers. Convert, it says. Number of meters, 15,000. Okay, we're going to divide that by what? How much bigger was a kilometer This says meters in kilometers. What did we decide?
1,000.
So we're going to divide by 1,000. So the number of kilometers is what? And when we divide by 1,000, we can certainly write that out and divide it, or we can just cross off these 3 zeros. What do we have left?
15.
15. So Alex's house is 15 kilometers from his grandparents' house. But remember, you can only cross off the number of zeros that you have in each of those numbers in your dividend and your divisor there. Any questions on this? Okay. We're moving on to page 424. At the top, another way. Jamie made a bracelet that 1.8 decimeters longer. How many millimeters long is Jamie's bracelet? So we're going from decimeters to millimeters. Which one of these is bigger? Decimeters, right? So decimeters is larger than millimeters. Show 1.8 decimeters. Since the unit is decimeters, place the decimal point so that the decimeter are the whole number unit. Okay? So since they said decimeters, we have 1 decimeter, and then we're going to put our decimal point, and we're going to have our 8 over there in the centimeter. So the decimal is not always going to stay in that position like it does when we're working within our place value system. Convert. Cross out the decimal and rewrite it so that milliliters would be the whole number unit. Write zeros to the left of the decimal point as needed to complete. Sorry, I lost my place. The whole number. Okay, so it says cross out the decimal and rewrite it so that millimeters will be the whole number unit. So we're going to take our decimal point, we're going to cross it out. We're going to move it over here so that millimeters. We're going to go over here. So now we've moved our decimal so that we have millimeters. We're going to fill in, write zeros to the left of the decimal point as needed to complete the whole number. Any questions on that? So we moved our decimal so that our last whole number was in the spot we wanted, millimeters, and we had to fill that place value in with a 0. Record the value with its new units. So 1.8 decimeters is equal to how many millimeters? How many do we have here? 180 millimeters. So Jamie's bracelet is 180 millimeters long. Okay, it says convert 247 milligrams to centigrams, decigrams, and grams. Are the units being converted to a larger unit or a smaller unit? So we're coming from milligrams to centigrams to decigrams to grams. So we're getting what? Larger every time. You should multiply or divide by powers of 10 to convert. So 247 milligrams divided by 10. We should have divide here. Did you get that? Okay, so when I divide by 10, remember I have 247 milligrams. when I divide that by 10, my decimal is understood to be here. When I divide that by 10, I am going to move my decimal one place to the left. So I have what? 24.7 centigrams. Now I'm going to divide it by 100. So I'm going to be moving my decimal how many places? How many zeros in 100?
2.
So 2 places. So I have 2.47 decigrams. And then I'm going to divide it by 1,000. So how many places am I going to move my decimal? 3. So I'm going to divide. So I'm going to have 0.247 grams. So you see how that got smaller every time? The number? Okay. Now, would we really need our little chart up there? No, we could say, well, our decimal is understood to be here. We're dividing by 10. We're going to move it one place. Remember, it's always understood to be at the end of the number or after the ones place. We're going to move it twice. We did this when? Clear back. Remember, at the beginning of the year. Yes, we did. Okay. So for every 0 or every power of 10, you're going to move that decimal. Now this one says convert 3.9 hectoliters to decaliters, liters, and deciliters. Are the units being converted to a larger or smaller? We're starting at hecto and we're going to deci. So they're getting smaller. Should you multiply or divide by powers of 10 to convert? You should multiply. So how important is it that you remember that rule? If you're going from larger to smaller, you multiply. If you're going from smaller to larger, you divide. All right, here we go. We're going to convert. Let's take care of this chart. Let's erase what we did in the first. 3.9 hectoliters. Notice these abbreviations. HL for hectoliters, DA for deca, while MG for millicg. You need to know those. I have a little quiz thing that I'll get out and we'll work on that so you start to remember that. Okay, so it's growing. We said we were going to multiply, right? If I multiply, is this 3.9 going to get, it's going to get what? Larger, right? So in order for 3.9 to get larger, what way do I have to move my decimal?
To the right.
To the right. So this would be 39 decaliters. How many places to the right am I going to move it for?
Twice.
1, 2. So I would have to add a 0. So I have 390 liters. And then how many for thousands?
3.
3. 1, 2, 3. So I'd have 3,900 decimeters. So I had 3.9. I moved it here to get my decaliters. I had to move it here to get my liters. Another one, 3 places like my zeros or 3 powers of 10. Okay, we've moved to the share and show on page 425. It says complete the equations. The think says are the units being converted to larger units or smaller units? We're going from liters to deciliters and centiliters and milliliters, and so we're getting smaller. So we are going to move our decimal one place